I think we heard quite a lot of information about three very important partnerships for Bangladesh. Japan is considered one of our most important development partners, and that, regardless of however we may feel about certain policies and certain plans, that doesn't change. China as well has been a crucial economic partner and will continue to be in the future. And Nepal, if you ask most Bangladeshis, they'll tell you Nepal is their favorite country. So they're our best friends. This session also is in the context of a broader global time, I should say, where multilateralism is on life support. We had the UNFCCC COP last month, which was disappointing to say the least, I think. No one really came out of that happy. We are at a moment where the global climate obligations are on very shaky ground. This is just today I saw an article that this year will be the first year where we will say that, we have crossed 1.5 degrees of warming. So this idea of keeping 1.5 degrees alive of the Paris Agreement, we are failing if we have not already failed. In that context, one of the things that I think we have to remember with our partnerships, whether it's with Japan, whether it's with China, whether it's with Nepal, or whether it's with any other development partner, is that we are in the midst of a climatic emergency. And we are in the midst of a global energy transition. And those two things have to be fundamental to whatever agreements, whatever cooperation we do moving forward. Yuki presented in his presentation about how the IEPMP in its current iteration is not aligned with the Paris Agreement, is not aligned with not only the renewable energy targets that we set ourselves, but also the net zero targets that we have under Paris Agreement, as well as the G7 has committed to. So it's very encouraging to hear that not only JICA is welcoming this review of the IEPMP, but also that our government is now willing to undertake that work of reviewing the IEPMP. We are in the midst of a big political transition. And we don't know how long we are in this period of our transition, if we are being very honest. In the last 15 years, perhaps the reason, I don't want to just point the fingers at our partners. I don't want to point the finger at only JICA here. I don't want to point the finger at our Chinese investors or any other country for that matter, because at the end of the day, we have to be masters of our own destiny. And what happens when a government is so separated from working for the greater good, working for the people, where maybe they were more focused on how do I increase my commission, how do I increase the land acquisition, how do I increase the procurement where I can have the corruption. When those become the primary focus of an energy policy, of course we will end up with a broken energy system. Of course, we will end up with Chinese-funded projects where we are spending more daily than we are generating. These are not financially viable. Of course, we end up with commitments to investments over the next 30 years on unproven technology or on technology that may not be suitable. And we will then claim that, no, this is suitable because we recognize that these investments can be funneled. We also have to recognize that there's a reason why, the Nepal case especially, this is presented often as a win-win situation. And I think, in Shanta Dada's presentation as well, we saw, especially that in the summer when our demand is the highest, Nepal has the most hydropower capacity to export. This seems like a win-win situation, and really the only losses here are in the sense of the project development in Nepal about the communities and the biodiversity aspect. But politically, geopolitically, this seems like a win-win situation. Why then did it take so long to get this agreement done? And that's where the complications are, right? Or complications of a tripartite agreement. This was a question I asked last year to one of our government representatives of the previous government when they were talking about building the South Asian cooperation on energy. And I said, how can you do this when we don't have a regional cooperation framework? We don't have the basis, the platform for this. And you are not willing to address the elephant in the room about why we don't have any of this. Yeah, SARC is dead. Moving forward, I think everyone has identified that we have to take more responsibility ourselves. Our government has to take more responsibility. Because if these cooperation deals with whichever country is not working to our benefit, that means our government has failed, primarily. This cannot be blamed on anyone else. Every geopolitical entity will be working for their own benefit. This is just the nature of international politics and international cooperation. So if we are not doing that for our own benefit, that means our government has failed, and we have to identify why our government has failed. Whether that is a lack of capacity, whether that is a lack of know-how, whether that is corruption, we have to identify that and work on fixing that. We hope in the future that we will see greater cooperation. None of these lessons, none of the drawbacks from this should limit how much we focus on cooperation, because without the cooperation, we will not move forward, whether it's with the just energy transition, whether it's with our climate action plans, and whether it's with increasing renewable energy, we will not move forward without that cooperation. But we have to now come to that cooperation in a way that is accountable, transparent, fighting the corruption, works for both parties, and especially has to work for us, as well as taking into account the needs of the climate and emergency and the human rights. Lastly, I want to bring one attention when we were talking about dams, and I think Mehdi Bhai talked about this and alluded to this. This is really one of the foundations of South Asia's environmental justice movement, was the movement against dams. So when we are thinking about the project design, and I'm not going to just limit this to hydro, but also to solar, we have to think about making better project designs, better implementation that will put people and the communities that is supposed to benefit at the center. Because without that, we will then fall into the same sort of cycle of messing up. I think that's about everything I wanted to say, but I'm hoping that that we will see a course correction now, and for that we need the help of our development partners. Thank you.